So we're going to go ahead and get started. So hi everyone, my name is Rhonda Fisher. I'm the clinical program lead for AHA team training, and welcome to our monthly webinar series. This month we're excited to present Purpose to Performance, turning hospital silos into strategic team results that engage and last. Super excited. But before we dive in, I'm going to go over some rules of engagement and just a few quick announcements. You can go forward for me, Laura. All right, so you can access audio by listening in through your computer speakers or through your phone. There we go. If you're having issues, you should be able to access the toolbar at the bottom to switch to either phone audio or computer audio. Please note that you will be in a listen-only mode throughout the presentation today. We will, however, moderate a Q&A session at the end with our speakers. So if you have questions, please do chat them in during the presentation. If it's a technical or a logistical question, we'll answer that right away in the moment. But if it's for our speaker, we'll save that for the end. So finally, please do note that this presentation is being recorded, and we will notify all registrants when the recording is up on our website. All right, just a note about CE moving forward. We're happy to offer free CEs for our webinars, but in order to claim CE credit, you have to create a Duke OneLink account. This is a one-time only setup, so if you've done it before, you're good. But if this is your first time joining us, you're going to need to set that up. And my colleague Rachel has chatted in those instructions. And you can also refer to it in the email that was sent to you this morning with the attachment. So following the webinar today, please text TUPMON to the number that you see on the screen. And don't worry, we'll share this at the end too. So if you don't get it right now, don't worry. You'll get another whack at it. So just a quick word on some upcoming team training events. We have 3 in-person master training courses still to be had here this year. So November 5th and 6th in Houston, December 4th and 5th in LA at UCLA. And then actually, this is coming up, not this year, but you're going to want to get registered and get excited about a virtual course that'll be starting in January. So again, those are our master trainer courses. Workshops, we are first time ever super excited about this. We are holding some virtual sustainment workshops, words, it's early in Oregon still. So if you have done team steps in your organization, but you've got specific questions about, hey, how do we make this stick for the long haul? That's what these workshops are about, and you're not going to want to miss them. So there's 3 different ones. You can attend all 3 or choose your own adventure. Just pick the one that seems most meaningful to you. And then, of course, we'll have another webinar coming up in November. So just also a quick announcement on our custom advisory services. If you're looking for a more customized training solution, we offer on-site trainings. That's where we come to your organization, and you can go ahead and switch that slide, Laura. That's where we come to your organization to deliver anything from a 2-day Team Steps Master Training course to a comprehensive training program that spans multiple on-site trainings and virtual coaching to truly support your Team Steps implementation efforts. We want to foster ownership and sustainability at your organization. So this allows us to customize the content to your unique needs and challenges, helps us be able to meet your hospital or health system right where they are. So you can visit our website to learn more, complete a brief questionnaire, and one of our team members, most likely me, will give back to you, and we'll start talking about a tailored solution for your organization. All right, so next up, we're pleased to introduce you to our speaker today, Laura Stone. She is the CEO and Chief Catalyst at Laura Stone, Inc., and she brings decades of experience helping senior leaders and teams unlock their purpose and drive legacy-making, lasting change. Who doesn't want that? Her work is rooted in both research and practical input, and it's a privilege to get to hear from her today on this important topic. So Take it away, Laura.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and welcome. So, in the time that we are together, I'm going to just say, know that you're going to want to grab a pen and paper. If you don't have one, do it now because the research we know is very clear. When you write this down, actually, if you listen, you're only going to get about 10% of it. If you write it down and take some notes and you never look at the notes again, it's going to increase your performance of remembering it by 30 to 40%. And the most important part here is if you go ahead and teach this, talk about it, bring it back to your teams, this is where your retention is going to rise to 70 to 80%. So before we go any further, grab that pen and paper. What I want to do is really help us understand how are you going to think about your own impact? Because the bottom line of the work that we're going to do together in this 45 minutes, that's precious time, is thinking about what percentage of time, and this is what I'd like you to write in the chat. What percentage of time right now during your day, during your week, are you doing the highest impact work that only you can do? If you could just put that in the chat because we're going to do what's called a waterfall exercise right now, where we're just going to see where you are at. And it's an important part of this journey because what we're going to want to do by the time we're done with this conversation is have, and I can see 15, 25, 10%, 30%. Thank you. 40, 30, 10. Okay. So we can see here your colleagues, you and your colleagues are in the similar ballpark, ranging from 10 to about 30% of your time. So, and one person's up to 50%. Holy smokes, this is good. So the reason and the purpose of this is if we can give you one thing that you can take away and increase your impact, then we know this has been a really valuable time. Because think about it this way. If you can go from 10 to 15% or 15 to 20, that's an hour or two. Imagine what can happen. Never mind taking it 10 points. So, what we're going to do today is focus on helping you understand really what's the work that only you and your team can do compared to being able to have the work of only yourself or your team come in and represent the silos. We want to be breaking down the silos and think about the shared accountability for success. The second part is understanding of a framework that will help you work through some conflict and really deal with some tensions that you perhaps have been fighting or challenged with for a long time. I've got a model for you to help you do that. And then the last part is be able to take this and apply it right away so that you can use it during your meetings on a regular basis, not just a one and done, so that you get the greater alignment and the impact. So, where has this been used? This has been a process that was the catalyst for CVS to shift over from basically the way they eliminated tobacco. And I'm going to tell a couple stories about that. But the first one is when they came together, their purpose, they didn't have a purpose as a leadership team, but it became the purpose of their leadership team became how do we improve the health of our customer? Which then, and by the way, we're going to go much deeper into this. Where does this get used and not used? Meaning it's not meant to be for the whole company. It's really meant to start with just the team. It ends up CVS did some different work with that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Dannon had used it in their operations that runs 70% of their global company, helped raise their Gartner ratings from 17 to 28%, and it still is increasing. And the last part with IBM, they used it for their outsourcing work to help many of their clients figure out how do you make HR easy, but it's one component of many. So why this matters, I've heard from you. I've done some research about hospitals. I do a lot of work with the American Hospital Association. And what we've heard over and over again is that you are experiencing all-time highs of burnout, bed shortages, financial pressures. And a lot of you have also shared that we thought COVID was difficult, but now look at post-COVID, where are we? It's one thing for me to say it, it's another thing to hear from you. And we'd love for you right now to pull out your phones and actually do something where I want you to take a QR code. This is going to produce a Slido that we're going to do a word cloud. And I want you to answer the question, what is your biggest leadership challenge with your leadership team, with your team? What are you facing? What leadership challenge are you facing with your team? I'm going to leave this screen up just for like another 15, 20 seconds. And I'm going to show you then, we're going to go switch to the Slido cloud so you can start seeing what others are experiencing as well. And if you are able to do this, we're going to see. And thank you in the chat. You can also join the slido.com and enter the code. It's in your chat, by the way. 17378764. If in case you are not able to do it with a phone, there's another way you can do it. All right, I'm going to, and if you want, you can by all means, if you don't have access to Slido, by all means, include it in the chat box. So I'm going to pause here, and Marina is going to show us what's showing up so far. Thank you, Marina. So accountability is a biggie. Too many silos. Trust is a huge one. Resources, competing priorities. Silos keep coming in. The culture, power struggles, integrity. Boy, accountability is big. It keeps growing and shrinking and breathing. Addressing system issues proactively. Having competing priorities. Okay, we're going to keep letting this go. We're going to keep this screen on for a moment. And what we're going to do is understand that all the issues that are showing up on your screen, first and foremost, the impact of you seeing this is interesting. By seeing that others have the same challenges as you, should hopefully you feel not as alone and know that others are dealing with this as well, which ironically, the research shows decreases the stress and increases your well-being to know that you're not alone in this. So this is a really helpful screen to see. All right. So as these are going to come in, what we will also do is add this to your slide deck at the end. We'll put the overarching Slido together once we see the final results. So we're going to hold it here and just know that with these, if you still have the Slido access, you can follow along. So here's what we're going to do. During this time, we are going to focus on how you have to be thinking about the 4 Ps it's called. And I'm going to share my screen and go back here. And the 4 Ps, if there's anything that you should be doing, is to please write down 4 Ps on a piece of paper. The first one is all about positive intelligence. And this is always around your mindset, that everything in this work starts with your mindset. The second P is about purpose. Third is about paradox. Fourth is about plan. But rather than me talking about it, I'd rather you experience it. So what we're going to do is have you just write down on your piece of paper on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you right now? And I mean, where are you in your stress level or happiness level? If you can see on the screen, it says on 0, you're feeling checked out, frustrated, all the way to a 10, you're full of energy, you're excited, and maybe you might be like a 6.5. You write this down for yourself. The intention right now is watching you know, how do you increase your own score? And we're going to do a very brief exercise. If you would sit up straight, put your 2 hands together, and if you want, just take your 2 pointer fingers. I know this sounds a little strange, and if you've got windows around you and people are watching you, they're going to go, what the heck are you doing? But I promise you, you're going to talk about this later, and it's going to be helpful. Notice right now the ridges on your fingertip. Just notice how the fingerprints rub against the fingerprints, which means you have to touch them very, very lightly. Now also do it with your whole hand, feeling all the ridges very lightly, one on the other, gently rubbing against it. Now, what are you noticing about those crevices? Chances are you may have never felt this before or taken the time to really notice your own handprint. But now what I want you to do is 1 deep breath in, 1 deep breath out. And what we just did was a series of mental fitness reps. How are you feeling right now compared to the less than 30 seconds ago when I asked you, where are you on this scale of 0 to 10? If you would put in the chat box, what is the number increase that you experienced just in those 30 seconds? because it would just be helpful for us to know, what are you seeing? One, so this is 10%. I'm going to use them in percentage points. 10, 20, 40%. Calmer from a 3 to a 7. 9. Holy moly. Thank you, Judy. So this was a 30-second exercise where you got to see and experience what's it like just to get in the present moment. It's a really critical part of this journey is helping you and your team come to the present because there's nothing you can do right now about the future. There's nothing you can do about the past because it's already gone. So this is critical for us to be able to know here and now, how do you actually help yourself and others? And by the way, during this, I'm going to share with you something that's going to be a gift for you very briefly that's going to help you dramatically support your learning and application and ability to share this. And it goes far beyond the slide deck that you've just received. In the purpose work, I'm going to shift over because the first P is about your own mindset. You've just experienced very briefly your mindset and a shift of now knowing that when you can go into a better state, you actually can be more creative, more innovative. The second P actually starts, and interestingly, even though it says purpose here, to start the stage of purpose, you have to ask yourself and your team a question. What is at stake if we don't align on our purpose? What is at stake? The reason why we ask this question is it helps us bring a reason to change. Because otherwise, it will just be the same old, same old. But why do we need to do this? And by the way, everything I'm sharing with you right now, I'm going to say use the 3 A's: adopt, immediately, wholeheartedly, adapt it, make it work for you if you only want to take a piece of this, or archive it, knowing that you have an offsite coming up and you may want to try it. Those 3 things, just think about those as we're moving through this. What you want to apply right now, what you want to alter, what you want to save for later. When we are trying to set the stage for what's at stake, the goal is to only do this for like 10, 15 minutes because it doesn't take much to get, all you have to do is brainstorm it with people. That's it. To start building a cohesion for reason to change. This is before you start getting into thinking about for yourself, what's going to make you proud of this team, say 2 years from now. The goal in the journey is to start with each individual and think about what do you want to change? Like, and what do you want to see? And what's going to make you proud? And the word pride in work is very explicit. And it helps differentiate. And this is a thought pattern that differentiates average from superior leaders. And the research is based in David McClelland's work from the Harvard School of Social Relations. He was the head of that department for 29 years. So we start with you first, and then you share. Everybody gets to share. What is it that you feel proud of? And you go in line or go in the circle of the group. You start learning about what's important to your colleagues that you perhaps have never heard about before. And then you start looking for those agreements. Where is it that you feel that you've got some commonality? And you start building on the agreements. Now, it's all about the dialogue and not about having this on a poster or a mug or a t-shirt because it's the conversation that matters. And you can see here there are climbers. And by the way, this is from the illustrations from my third book, Team Purpose to Performance. As you can tell, it's not your typical business book, not a lot of black and white. There's a lot of color, a lot of white space. But building agreements, and if you would write this next piece down, that's really important. To build an agreement, you need to have information and take that information plus understanding equals agreements. And that's the only way you can come to an agreement. You have to have information and you come to that information with understanding, or you'll be able to ask questions. So every little step around building your purpose statement is building a series of small agreements that helps you get to the next level and will make it so you don't slide back down. And every time you do this, you're going to see progress. And I say this, progress, not perfection on this one. The core of this work is all about the influencing and impacting others. So think of it as taking process improvement and then giving it a why and meaning. Because process improvement for process improvement's sake alone doesn't light up a lot of people when it comes to making a difference for others. And that's what impact is all about. It's helping others. You spend your days helping patients get better. You may be a leader. I know a number of you, like 70% of you are nurses or in the nursing staff or nursing leadership. You are always there thinking about patients and how you help them. A couple of other really important pieces is that when you are thinking about the purpose of your leadership team, you're going to want to make sure that it's within your control, in your sphere of influence. So you don't want to do anything that's got to do with politics, finance, climate control, unless, of course, that's your job. So this is the world of when you have the conversation. The fun part about it is you start really getting creative and excited conversation around what can we do? And then you start asking the question of all the things that we could do, which ones would have the highest impact? What's unique to us so it's not generic? And noticing by the time you're done, you're going to start sifting out, is really that the work only we can do? This is where you start getting super clear on the top three. And I would highly recommend only 3 to 5 things that you start really getting super clear about. This is what gets integrated into your purpose statement. Now, we're going to move. I'm moving fairly swiftly because I want to leave time at the end for us to have a conversation and have your questions be answered. The third P is for paradox. Now, paradox is where you're holding two opposing, not just situations, but emotions at the same time. Now, why would we want to do emotions? Emotions actually access a different part of our brain through the amygdala to get to our neocortex. But by adding that step, we actually can make better decisions, the research shows. So a lot of times teams and leadership gets in conflict when we see the world as an either or versus a both and. How do we see both this way of doing it and that way and look at it together? I'll give a quick example. Fred Smith, the current or the CEO or the founder actually of FedEx, took the challenge of how do you take mail and have it go from being something that had been traditionally slow and cheap to something that was actually fairly fast and relatively inexpensive. And by looking at how he saw the world through those two lenses, was able to do the breakthrough of coming up with the whole purpose of FedEx being in business. He actually got a C plus, by the way, from his Harvard professor on this one. Interesting. The next piece, how do you actually see a paradox? And if you've ever, I don't know if you were a camper or a kid and remember Mad Libs, but here's a way you can look at it. You start with saying, I feel, and it could be any emotion. It could be excitement, hope, joyfulness, because, and this is a really important part, when you start explaining your purpose, your paradox of why you feel this way, this unlocks going from a generality to the specifics of that emotion and why you are feeling this. You then add the other side of it and say, I feel the opposing emotion as well because. Now, you might be saying, and I'm going to come back to something, why do we need to deal with paradoxes? And that the research shows that in leadership, if you are only about the excitement and one part of this paradox of hope and joy and pride, you're going to be seen as, the term I use is Pollyannish. They're going to not believe that you're grounded in reality. However, if you only are looking at the negative, if you're only looking at the doom and gloom, the terrible things that are happening, you got the Eeyore effect from Winnie the Pooh, okay? It's like it will never work. So we don't want that. You can't, no one wants to follow that. However, leaders that are able to balance and teams that are able to see both sides of the paradox and work with them together are actually grounded in the reality to see a pathway forward. You actually need the negative to be able to show the challenge rather than being lulled into all the positive. And it's actually a lot more research on that one too, and we can talk about it. So from here, what we notice is when leaders, and this is another interesting data point, most teams avoid conflict like the plague. 40 to 70% of the population don't like dealing with it, don't want it, and if they can avoid it, they will. But what paradox allows us to do is rather than being at each other with the challenges, we actually are looking at it together in the same way so we can actually face that elephant in the room and look at it objectively. And sometimes we have, even in the dialogue about how we see what that elephant is, really, all the different dimensions, it helps us actually come back to a better, more clear place around the issue. If some of you have done problem statements, that's a great place after you take your paradox work to get to a problem statement. What's really the problem we're trying to solve? But it starts with understanding the core paradox first. So the fourth P, this one is all about planning, and it's how you pull the whole thing together. So remember we talked about at the beginning, what's at stake? This is a sample game plan that you can put together and have a one pager where if you very quickly talk about what's at stake, you then go up to here where you're having the conversation about our purpose, why we are here, what's going to make us proud. And then you go to around this end of it, which is around the key paradoxes that you can turn into problem statements. So when you start looking at it, then the last pieces are about what are the key results and outcomes. I'm agnostic when it comes to those words. There's a great book called Measure What Matters by John Doerr. He talks about this, about having OKRs. Think about the OKR as the objectives get really written out here once you get clear on them. The key results get here. And then it's about how do we get from here to there? How do we get from where we are to where we want to go? Now, in doing this work, it is not a one and done. A lot of times, how many of us have ever been to a strategic planning session and only to find out that you don't touch it for a year or you don't touch it for 6 months? That's not what this is about. This is about being in a dynamic revisiting process. Because if you think about what happened in January of 2020, and we had a plan, and this is a true story with a client. We had done all this work, and then we came back together March 10th, as actually March 16th, 2020. In between that time, your world, my world, all the world got upside down with COVID. Now, their game plan, the beautiful part is their purpose still stayed the same as as they had worked together, but their initiatives on how they were going to get to their key results just shifted. And they realized their work was more about being in high level communication with their team members than anything else. And that was one of their key streams of work they had to focus on. So it's meant to be dynamic, meant to be revisited, and to stay in dialogue. So the reason why also is maybe you can relate with this is that most teams do a short amount of planning. And in this planning, they think, okay, we're done now. And then they end up in redo mode. I don't want that for you. We want to do is spend a little bit more time. And it does, it takes a little bit more time to do this game plan. But once you do it, you don't have the redo. And notice this is where you save the time. And it probably is even bigger amount of space because what happens is you start seeing the world and do small course corrections as you go along. So you don't have to redo everything, especially your purpose statement. A purpose statement, if it's done well and you've got true alignment, you might just be tweaking it and you're going to want to revisit it. So the cool thing here is looking at how do you take these components and make them your own? So try a micro practice, and I would say test and measure. At your next team meeting, consider thinking about what is at stake if we don't change. Another micro practice. Consider what's the work that only we can do that will make us proud. It's a powerful, exciting conversation to have, and it's one that allows you to think differently together that's based in pride in work and it has emotional connection, which means that you actually have a higher likelihood of success to integrate the emotional side. The third is understanding what are the paradoxes that only you as a team must address and rank order them. And sometimes one can outdo all the others. And that's actually what happened with CVS. It actually, to be very frank with you, the tobacco issue did not even come up on their paradox list initially. until later on in the conversation. I brought it up. I said, these are all great and important, but if I don't bring this up with you in the room, I won't be doing my job. And I said, what about the tobacco you guys sell? You will be seen as hypocrites if you don't address this and you come out with this is, we're here for the health of our customer. The room went silent. Now, it took them 5 years to get that tobacco off of the shelves and a $1.5 billion line item to make up for it and then some. But since then, their revenues have doubled, their top line. Now, that's just an example. It does not mean that yours is going to take 5 years, but it is something just to get started to then start thinking about how do you draft a purpose-driven game plan? And just encourage you to keep it simple and notice where you're making progress so that when you come back together, you will be able to see and focus on where do you need to move the needle? What might have to be adjusted? And it's not just yours alone to do, it's the teams to own. And that's the shared accountability part. So I have a free gift for you. Grab your pen, or sorry, grab your phone, use your QR code here, and you can get a copy of the Team Purpose to Performance book. And it's not your average bear book. And here's what it looks like on the inside. There's lots of pictures, there's lots of pages here for you to think, but it's a step-by-step guide to understand what you and your team can do. So you can take this book, share this QR code, share what you have as the link with your team. They can all download it, give it to them as pre-work. It does not take long to read. I did this very intentionally. I wanted to very much make it accessible for you. And once you do that, have the conversations and start seeing what spurs of the ideas that come for everybody. Now, I'm going to leave this up just for a moment longer, but I want to move us to the next step here is saying, okay, what's actually resonating for you? I'm going to pause this and we can put a link. And by the way, there'll be another opportunity for a different link in a moment. And if in case this, you can't access it for some reason on your phone because you're on your phone right now, we've got another way for you to do it. So I'm going to change us back to the Slido. And if you would please answer this one question. What's one insight you have gained to help you increase your strategic impact that you think it could do at least 1%, 5%, 10%? Something that you want to try immediately. Let us know what that is. And I'm going to hold this up for just a little bit before we're going to see the results of what you are getting from this. And you can see what your friends and colleagues from 40 states, by the way, that are on this webinar. And apparently North Carolina, California, Illinois, you all are the winners to be the most attendees, which is very exciting. So once we've got this, we're going to see in the Slido what is, let's see, I'm going to give you, Marina, the access to it. And Marina, if you can share us with the Slido, that'd be great. And we're going to see the results in a moment. And while Marina is getting this, and if you need to go on microphone, Marina, if there's something that's, there we go. Thank you. We're going to see what comes from her screen and what you all are saying.
Can you see it? It says it's paused on my end.
It's coming, it's coming. It's thinking because there's so many brilliant ideas coming. It must be. In the meantime, while that's coming, I will also help you stay connected with Marina. We still haven't seen it yet, but if it comes in, you let us know. And I'm going to keep moving on and we can pop in the results as soon as you're ready. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So let's see. Accountability, holding the shared accountability. Yes. You want to apply this immediately is the one insight. Let's see. I think this is still the Slido from the last one. This is the struggles. That's all right. What we're going to do is we'll come back to this.
What was the slider you're looking for? Was it from the last group?
What is one insight you have gained to help you increase your strategic impact?
One moment.
In Slido. Yeah. In the meantime, as we're going to wait for the results to come up, I'm going to give you free resources to help you, in addition to being able to, let's see, being able to get the book and understand what everyone else has. I'm going to share with you this one page. Here we go.
Excuse me, Laura. The one that I have says something a little different. It's what is your biggest leadership challenge with your team?
That's the first one, not the second one. The second one was about the one thing they're taking away, and it's okay. The most important part of this is for people to understand one thing that you're taking away. And I have some resources for you, additional resources, which is if in case you want to have strategic gems. I have a TikTok channel that I have millions of viewers. And if you have it here, you can see there's a QR code for you here. It also shows on Instagram, but I just did one QR code. But if it's a handle, both of them are the same handle at Laura Stone Leadership. And if you want to stay in touch, these are the other ways of staying in touch. And the bottom line is not to do this alone. Like, work with your team, have the conversations, enjoy the fact that this may be something that you're a little uncomfortable with, but there's a lot of opportunity to be able to see and experience what's possible with having a different set of conversations and doing it in a very structured way together. Most people find that this is kind of a cool thing to be doing, and watch what happens. And then the last part is, we want to hear from you. What questions do you have? Where are you coming from with what the challenges are you're dealing with? And we're ready and open. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and be able to walk through and understand from your standpoint what questions you have about the process so far. So I see here that extremely important for the staff to identify what would make them feel proud. Absolutely. It's an exciting process, actually, when people start having this conversation, because they start getting lit up and you notice the energy level increases. It's very cool. And Fatima, thank you. So engage the team in planning to achieve the same output. How often do you have a set of shared accountability, not just a silo, but what cuts across all of it? And the challenge with that is a lot of times people walk in with one hat. The hat is, this is my silo, this is my functional area. And what we need to do is have them put that hat on the side and put the shared accountability hat and say, what can we do together? So, do any adjustments need to be made for cross-functional teams? I would say it's a yes and a no. Yes, from the honoring the fact that you can get a cross-functional team together and notice what is it that you all are being held accountable for. You're going to be able actually probably to leapfrog and give more excitement, because here's the hard thing. When you have a cross-functional team, you have only a dotted line report to somebody versus the hard line. But what's going to be interesting is they're going to want to work with you more than their own team if you start doing this. So that's the upside and downside. It's mostly good, but you can see where we're going with this. What other questions do you have? Because I want to make sure you get them answered in the meantime and have other opportunities to try out this work. And in the meantime, Rhonda, I want to just make sure that people are understanding they can come back to the video. You've got lots of links as resources. And in the book, I also will let you know that you now have from that QR code. By the way, if you go into my TikTok channel or the Instagram, you can go on my link tree, my bio, and get the book that way as well, if in case you weren't able to do it on the QR code. How do you manage the team expectations, the time it can take for the change and the outcomes when everyone wants things instantly? God, do I know this one? This is essential to celebrate often the little wins, because the big wins make up a lot of smaller wins. Just like agreements when you're climbing up that mountain, to get to that big outcome, that massive result takes a lot of series of little ones to be able to make that climb. Um, there's also a lot of work and research about the power of progress when people see it. And I have a model for you. And if you would please write this down. Say, do, see. Once you have declared you are going to do something, you say it and you share it. Like, once your team has decided you're going to do it, you come back and revisit and you go, see, did we do it? And this see means you're showing the progress. you say it, you do it, and then you go, see, we did it. That builds trust, but if you only do it once, it doesn't work. It will only build a little bit of trust. You have to do the say, do, see over again. Now, what are you going to declare in the next 30 days? You're going to say it, you're going to do it, and then declare it, and then you're going to finish it and say, look what we did. That builds, and for your piece about when people want things instantly, show the progress where you can and what's coming up next. A really great question, Catherine. Thank you so much. I love Lady Johnson. Okay. Other questions? I'm not sure I'm seeing them on my end, but I think that wraps it up on my end. Otherwise, we're excited to be here. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to pull up. I have one more.
Yeah, I'll just remind people that you are able to access this slide deck after the webinar concludes today. The webinar itself will also be posted on the AHA Team Training website. So give that a few days. It takes a little bit to get up, but it will be there for you to be able to go back and watch again. And if you didn't get all the writing down that Laura recommended in order to make it stick, you'll have another opportunity to do that. So don't think that this is your last opportunity at this information. So I see Shandia's comment in the chat. Phenomenal presentation, so simple yet powerful. Thanks so much. So yeah, sometimes it's the little things, it's the little takeaways that we can go home and, as Laura encouraged us, pick one thing. Just pick one thing to start applying tomorrow and start shifting, even maybe just your own perspective on things, and then moving the team towards more of that culture change you're after. So just some final reminders. Please complete the evaluation form that appears on your screen once the webinar ends. And to get your continuing education, be sure and create that Duke OneLink account. If you haven't done so, you can download the instructions from the Files Pod or your registration confirmation email. And then there's that code on the screen. Once again, you're going to want to text that code to the number on the screen within 24 hours in order to get your CE. So going to give it just one more minute to see if we have any other last minute questions come in.
Another hand raised. I'm not sure. That way, or put it in the chat.
Christy, since it's in a listen only mode, could you pop your question into the chat? That would be lovely. Maybe it was All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. Really want to thank our speaker, Laura Stone, for being with us, bringing us this wonderful information, and for sharing her book. Amazing that she's made this available to our listening audience. So thank you so much. No excuse, anyone, for not downloading that book and reviewing all of this great information and starting down that change pathway. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next month.